Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you guys have had a fantastic day out there and having a great week out there so far. I got you an update, not talking about today or tomorrow necessarily, but we're going to take a peek at what's going on over the next several days into maybe the next 7 to 10 days. And really the big topic of this video this evening will be the fact that we're going to have definitely a pattern change for a large portion of the country, the central and eastern U.S., and we might finally look to at least break down that ridge almost all the way for areas of the south central U.S. That means one, maybe average to slightly below average temperatures for areas like Texas and surrounding regions. And then two, maybe higher risk for rain. This is going to be a cut and dry video. We're going to get straight to it. It's an uncommon setup. Typically in August, especially mid-August, at least usually towards late August, you start seeing it in the long term. But really, it's going to be an interesting setup, not just for this weekend when we have a shot of cooler air and drier air, but next week, it looks like the pattern might reload, and then we might get another shot of some cooler and dry air across really anybody except obviously Florida. But we're going to talk about that. If you guys have not subscribed, please consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Ever consider joining my channel to join tabs there, trying to get to 20 members. I'm currently at about 15 or 16, and I appreciate you guys very much for continuing to stick by me and stay joined to my channel and support me in that way. And just thank y'all for tuning in this evening. The evening videos have not done that well really over the last few months, but hope you guys are tuning in. Hope you're interested, and thank y'all for tuning in. More importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So check it out. Look at this big area in blue. Unless you're just, not going to call you odd, but unless you're still just craving that really hot weather, some people just love really hot weather, then if you're not that person, then this is good news for you. Well below average temperatures are certainly predicted, especially for the Ohio Valley areas of the Mid-South. And then areas just in Kentucky, West Virginia might be the epicenter for some below average temperatures. The 16th to the 20th, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. So we'll see how this tweaks further south. Does it tweak more north? It just depends on how model guidance tries to handle what kind of troughing we have next week. This is not the time period for this weekend. This weekend starts the 12th through the 14th. This is for next week into really next weekend. So I mean, it's still above average temperatures predicted for Texas and Florida and the Gulf Coast. But check out as we get to that 8 to 14 day range. That's the 18th through the 24th. This is getting, a week or two out. Starting to beat down that ridge. We're starting to see maybe the chance of slightly below average temperatures in areas of even Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've just seen nonstop 100-plus degree days. Very interesting setup. This is not going to be a wholesale cold front, a connection from the Arctic or anything like that. It's going to just be kind of an upper trough that swings through and then brings a section of the country below average temperatures. Now, the confidence isn't very high. As you can tell, you have just a 40 to 50% chance of leaning to below average temperatures. So it can tweak a little bit, but I can tell you we're at least probably going to have around normal temperatures. So a big break in the heat. And what's interesting is take a look at the latest GFS. These are dew points. You're not looking at temperatures. You're looking at dew points. And I'll always will, stress this time of the year. Dew points are the best things to look at is when we're looking for that air mass change. So dew points, anything below 60 to 55 degree dew points, that is starting to get into what we call a dry air mass. Anything above that, you're starting to get to a more moist air mass. When you start to get into dew point 70s and above, that is a tropical air mass. And when you really walk outside and you start sweating, even if the sun ain't even out. So that's how it is in the southeast, for example, all throughout the summer, 3, 4, 5 months out of the year. But check it out. So we'll start off by looking at this front for this weekend. Here it goes, dry air oozing into the Ohio Valley, into the Northeast as early as Friday morning. This will bring a very comfortable day across the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast for your Friday. This will try to inch south. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Over the last 24 hours, guidance has actually trended a little bit further north and not as far south with the intrusion of dry air. But this might tweak back and forth over the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll see how this unfolds, but we're getting into Saturday morning, and you still got a tropical air mass clinging to these areas down here where maybe 24 hours ago it was showing more dry air. But we'll see how this goes. All of Tennessee, North Carolina, points north, very comfortable air. Dew points in the 40s and 50s, but still clinging on to those 70s deep down the deep south. Then we start to get into Saturday. The upper trough begins to pivot off the coast of the eastern U.S. It's starting to swing in winds out the northeast, and you're pumping in some dry air all the way down to South Carolina. And I think dew points will really plummet throughout the day, Saturday potentially. But how far south does this intrusion of dry air get? It's really splotchy in nature too, which pretty much tells me, and we've already always known this about this weekend, that this isn't really a regional clearing cold front. It's just an upper trough. It kind of brings pockets of dry air, if you will. It's not a wholesale big dramatic cold front. So this is kind of what you get, but very comfortable weekend still forecasted. Lows in the 60s for areas in the southeast, and then you get into lows in the 50s, you get into the Ohio Valley, and then some higher elevations of the northeast. Even in the southern Appalachian Mountains could get down to the 40s. We'll see how that happens here, but another push of dry air, very dry day. A very nice day for your Sunday. Still warm, but dew points only in the 50s in the Carolinas into Georgia. But what's interesting, we've known this for the last week, but what's really interesting is the atmosphere moistens up, which we would expect in mid-August. But then check this out. Another pool of dry air comes down. Some more troughing sets up, punches in more dry air as we get into about early to midway next week. And you got dew points right back into the 50s, all the way down to the south. So very comfortable air would make, the morning lows much more comfortable into the 60s. This is still splotchy in nature too. We're just not going to get wholesale cold fronts all the way into the southeast this time of the year. But we're getting into, around this time next week. And look at these dew points again, surging into the 50s. This is sneaking all the way into the Gulf Coast. So very comfortable air. And then we get into the long range of the GFS, and another surge of more dry air comes through. So wacky run, but I can tell you next week is even showing up on the Euro. You take a look at the Euro, check out the dew point plunge this weekend, right? This swings through this weekend, brings in some nice dry air. These are dew points, remember. The Euro is still buying in on a deep surge pretty south. And then, like I said, this looks just like the GFS. Here comes another plunge. Look at these dew points in the 70s, almost 80 down here on the Gulf Coast, but you get into the mid-south, Tennessee, northern areas of Mississippi and Alabama. Dew points dropping again into the 60s, into the 50s. This would aid to more lower actual air temperatures. I know you hear me talk dew points, but this is the biggest thing to look at this time of the year. It really is. It really symbolizes the air mass, because cold fronts this time of the year aren't going to drop the temperatures much. It'll make an average 94-degree day your highs might only be 90 degrees instead, but it'll feel different because it'll be more of a dry air mass. But this is for next week. Another punch of dry air tries to move through. We'll see how potent this is, but this could bring another comfortable several nights across the eastern U.S. And, you look into the central U.S. too. I honestly think this is going to sneak into y'all's area too, even though it doesn't really show it that much. But I think some troughing will set up into y'all's area too, even though it's not showing much. I think y'all get some rain also. But what does temperatures look like? This is the GEFS ensembles. Now, I know you're going to look at this and say, well, this isn't that impressive. But for mid-August standards, it is. First off, look at these 50s for Friday morning. You're waking up in the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region. And then we're getting into Saturday morning, 50s all the way down to Tennessee, probably areas of Virginia, North Carolina. Maybe even probably an upper 50-degree reading into areas of the deep south. I would not be surprised. Very comfortable day. You can actually see where the troughing's setting up. Temperatures only in the 70s in the Ohio Valley, 80s, but with low humidity in areas of the south. But then check it out, okay? It starts to warm back up a little bit, but here comes another cool shot of air right into here. Now, models are still iffy on this, but what I want you to really focus on is this area right down here in Texas. Watch as we get into next week, late next week, the temperatures beat that heat down gradually. You're only in the 90s and 80s in Texas by the time you're getting into about 7 to 10 days out. So it looks like the heat might get beat down in these areas. And I know you're thinking, well, Mitch, I don't see any fall kind of air with this. But for mid-August standards, this is about the best you can ask for. And I'm really speaking for us in the Southeast. I know I always have a bias towards the Southeast. That's where I start talking weather, guys. But really, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen this much troughing cold fronts in August. I don't even remember since I've really been talking about weather. So this is, if next week unfolds, we kind of know what's going to happen this weekend for the most part. But if next week unfolds, I mean, really, it's awesome. It's really great to see. And really what's going on is you look at the heights. Blues, when we talk a lot about this in winter, it's troughing. Reds is ridging. Troughing is cooler air. Ridging is when you have the heat domes, the hot air. So here comes a quick moving upper trough that surges in some dry air from the north and northeast. That moves on through, and then more troughing sets up. And this is just an upper trough. And here it is. Look at the blues. Negative heights over the eastern and central U.S. That symbolizes that we will have troughing next week across the central and eastern U.S. So we'll see how this plays out. So briefly, I'll mention the tropics. I tell you what, guys, it's insane that not insane, but it's just wild that not only is nothing showing up, 97L is not gonna develop. By the way, not only is nothing going on right now, and we're entering, always consider the 10th through the 20th of any given month, the mid part of the month, and then the 1st through the 9th, the early part of the month, and then, you know, the blah, 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 the 21st through the rest of the month, what we call the later part of the month. That's how I always considered it. So we're in mid-August. Let's just go on and call it that. There is nothing, no kind of spins, nothing popping off in the Gulf of Mexico. And even though we're going to have favorable phasing, we're going to have a favorable Kelvin wave. That's getting deep into the meteorology terms. We're gonna be favored because it's going to be climatology peak of hurricane season, late August, early September. Nothing is showing up in any long-range guidance. The Euro, which only goes 10 days out, the GFS, which goes 15 days out, nothing is showing up. They're starting to become now gradually thinking that, hey, this might not play out. Here we go. I mean, we're 10 days out at this point. There's nothing. We're getting into about 13 to 15 days out, which is unreliable territory. Sure, maybe a wave right here, but there is nothing. Nothing in the Gulf of Mexico. And guys, when I tell you something, when you're not seeing anything popping up in the fantasy land, the GFS, which we all know, who's been following models with me for a while, is not showing anything, I'm telling you guys that I mean, it's really quiet. I mean, the Saharan dust is so thick right now in Texas. I'm seeing pictures of it just looking like straight haze in Florida right now. But it's just where we're at. It continues to be quiet. And really, that's all I got. At least we have something enjoyable here locally in the U.S. to really try to iron down and figure out. I've been actually enjoying talking about these cold fronts. I don't like August too much, but I love August more and more as I get older because this is the time of the year where you really start looking for pattern changes, or we're going to break the back of summer. And I'm really starting to think, well, we're going to begin to break the back of summer for a lot of people across the country. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a great night.